that I gave you parameters to be able to record.
I think
Yep, look at that. He's already recording it. Hey, I'm glad you're all here. And I'm just to be real honest with you, I've done this presentation now with a couple of individuals, but never with a group. And so you're my very first group, and I'll be, when I stumble, just give me a chance or two to figure out, especially when it comes to sharing the screen. It's the most important part of the whole presentation, and the part of the presentation that I hate the most is that moment when I try to get that PowerPoint onto the screen. But we're gonna see how I do today. My name is Virgil Askren, and I'm the district superintendent in South Arkansas in the RAND project. And the total, the title is like RAND, which is Research and Development for Vibrant Church Renewal. In the RAND project, there was a pilot group between some pastors in Oregon and in South Carolina. And it was facilitated by Dr. Reeder and by Dr. Eddie Estep. And so I was a part of that pilot group. And Dr. Reeder was doing what I'm doing now until he became the regional director and asked me if I could go ahead and fill in for that. Now that I see Dan's face, Dan and I went to college together a long time ago.
Yes, sir.
Nice to see you.
Likewise.
And so one of the things that I find is that I forget to say, are there any questions? So if you have a question and I haven't asked for a while, just interrupt me, all right? And we'll make sure that this works. We're going to do it in 2 steps. The first is just an overview of RAND. I think, Ira, you've gone through that. And Doug, have you gone through the overview?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And then we'll do the second, which is the cohort facilitator training, so that you're going to be able, so as you lead a group, you'll know what you're supposed to be doing. Any questions? Good. All right. Well, why don't we go ahead and tell you what, let's start with a word of prayer. And Ira, would you lead us in prayer?
Sure. Let's pray. Father, thank you for this opportunity to come together, maybe reconnect and learn. And we're just filled with hope and anticipation of how you might work in and through us and do something very significant on our district to renew us, to change us, and to transform us. Thank you for each person who's been able to be a part, and we ask for your grace and your help during this time together. Amen.
Amen. All right, well, we're going to start with seeing how well I do with sharing this slide. There, can everyone see that?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Wow. All right, I'm going to try to start the slide presentation. Okay. Well, this first presentation just tells you a little bit about RAND for Vibrant Church Renewal. Is it okay with you all if I just call it RAND? Will that work okay? And we all know what we're talking about then. And RAND really came as a response. I think part of what RAND came to as a response of there's so much emphasis on church planting. What about the rest of us? And I feel like RAND really helps to answer that question so that we can see the church growing and maturing both in planting and in our existing churches. And so let's see here. We start off with our faithful leader. This is going to be he is going to lead your facilitating for all of you project. And this is, I think, your most current race. Is that right?
He's muted.
Yeah, that's Paco. That was my running partner in Tombstone a few weeks ago.
Is it Baco or Paco?
Paco, yeah.
Paco, is he is that a burro?
Yes, it's a burro. It's not a mule, it's a burro. He's a standard burro. They come in minis and there's even giant ones. So it's kind of an unusual sport.
And has he done this race before?
I've done one other one.
Has Paco run before?
Yeah, Paco and I ran twice. Paco and I have a very difficult relationship.
Well, you can see that. You can see Iris smiling. Is this the beginning of the race,
Oh,
Iris?
this is after the 14 miles and 4 hours of pure hell.
Yeah, that's a good picture. We got another one. Here's where you win on your race. Is that right?
It's a little like pastoring. So.
And it's a lot like church renewal.
Exactly.
And so there's a reason that this is a process of about 18 months. And even at the end of the 18 months, you're not going to be finished. You're just going to have some tools to be equipped to really accomplish the race. I got one more picture, just mostly because neither one of you were smiling as much. So I wasn't sure where this one was taken, but
that's how I'm just happy to be done. I don't think he cares. So
well, I had to have those pictures. Those two great. Congratulations on the race.
Thank you.
I think all of us have churches on our district that are stuck, and maybe we feel like our church is stuck or in a season that's stuck. Maybe we're seeing declines in attendance, and along with that would be financing, in morale. Sometimes you feel like you've tried everything, but you're not really sure what direction to go next. And sometimes you just like to figure out what to do, but you don't have the time and tools to do it. And our hope is that this RAND project is a way to provide some of those tools. Here's a few stats for you. On average, churches in all denominations that are 20 years old or older are declining by 1% to 2% per year. That's significant. And as a denomination, we haven't planted many churches in the last 50 years. Now, in the last probably 10 years, we really are working hard on that, but we haven't planted nearly enough churches. And that 80% of our churches in our denomination were planted before 1987, with an average age of 33 years old. Now, Arizona has planted, at least the records that I had, that you planted 3 churches in the last 3 years. And so your church, is that right, Doug?
We actually started 3 during the pandemic, and we restarted 3 during the pandemic.
Wonderful.
So 6 new works going.
Oh, that's great. Okay, I'm going to make note of that.
Yeah.
And that puts you about average with the denomination, with that number. The median age of, and these stats all come from the resource and research department there at headquarters. The median age of a church in Arizona is 50 years of age. And 77.4% of the Arizona churches are more than 20 years old. And so, just based on those stats of the denomination in general, it's pretty easy for us to see that most of our churches statistically are plateaued or declining. And I don't know if you're finding that in your particular church, but we're looking at across the board at the district. So we've got to keep starting new works. We already know that. But as soon as we start talking about starting new works, we recognize that there are several churches that are left behind if we just focus on new works. The 77% of your churches that are over the age of 20, 81% of your attendees, and about, what did I say here? I've got our little faces, and 84% of our members attend those churches that are older than 20. So we can't just ignore them. We've got to move ahead. Do you have any questions on that? Doug, maybe you can fill in the blanks too if there are any for that.
No, it's pretty accurate.
So. Okay. So our reality as the Church of the Nazarene, and not just the Arizona district, but all of us, is that we really do need vibrant church renewal. That 70 to 80% of our churches are plateaued or declining, and that the North American Church, Nazarene Church, has shrunk by 1% per year for the last 15 years, 3% last year. Now, because of COVID, this last year is really 2019. So we recognize there's a decline, and you may see it on your own district. And so we have some choices to make as to how we're going to deal with the decline. Part of it's just maybe it's easy just to be silent and not address the issue, and cheer on the church plants that are going on and just recognizing this is the way it is. We can tell the story that it's helpless, that it's just the current context. There's nothing we can do. COVID gives us a bit of an out for that, because with COVID, maybe there's more reality to that than ever. But I tend to believe that even in COVID, there's a solution that's going to help us to move ahead. Well, in looking at all the churches, we've recognized that there are, excuse me, there are churches that are 20 plus years old, but are growing. And so we started looking at those churches to determine what was going on in those things. First, we wanted to see what are behaviors in those churches that are creating mission effectiveness that are obvious but underutilized in other churches, things like evangelism. Second, what are the cultural taboos, things that we don't want to talk about either because it's personal or it's uncomfortable, and they end up becoming hindrances to what the church is doing. And these churches have found ways to overcome that. And here's an example, like we don't like the way the pastor preaches or deals with conflict. And then third, in the survey, these 50 largest, fastest growing churches in North America, what were the positive deviants? That is, what are the things that they're doing that make them different than the rest of us? And how are those things that are possible for us, for the other church to do? There ended up being 10 different deviants that we came up with, and they were all agreed were essential for mission effectiveness. And these really become the hub for RAND, for Vibrant Church Renewal. And these are the categories that we end up talking about during the 18 months that we're together in a RAND cohort. And they are establishing a missional framework, self-leadership, assessment of present realities, creating life-changing worship services, a process for discipleship, evangelism, spiritual principles, leading complex change. Okay, we're going to take a minute and talk about leading complex change. Here's an example of one of the projects in RAND. In leading complex change, we all can see the corner up here on, well, let's see, I guess it's on my top left. You see where it says a case for change? We've just got done talking about the case for change. We recognize that happened, that's pretty real for all of us. And this just tells us that if we can make a case for change, which is fairly easy to do, and if we complete vision, skills, incentives, resources, and action plan, we're going to move ahead to, or incentives, resources, action plan, we'll end up with change. But if we don't ever make a case for change, then we're going to end up with the status quo. I think that's where a lot of us find ourselves. Some of us have made the case for change, but we just don't know what to do next, that vision. And if you stop there, the final outcome is confusion. And you can see the next one is if you can make a case for change and you establish a vision, but you don't give any skills to people, then you're going to end up with just gradual change as folks slowly learn how to do whatever it is that's new. If you go all the way through and you don't provide resources, you end up with frustration. Well, we spent a whole lesson talking about complex change and the case for making and how to go through complex change. And the fact is that what we're talking about when we talk about RAND is complex change. this is going to be a major for you and for your church. I think we left it, did we leave off on spirit or leading complex change? Number 8, holding crucial conversations is another significant area that we'll discuss. And then finally, delegation and leadership development. Any questions on those? All right, let's talk a little bit about history then. Here's how Vibrant Church Renewal began. It's just simply not enough, or how it can begin. It's not simply just to do our best. We've already figured that out. If we could do it by doing our best, then our statistics would be different than they are. We need to know what to do, and then we do our best. RAND is all about helping us to know what to do. And so if you're looking for something that's going to give you an evangelism plan, or this is what your worship service needs to look like, you're going to be disappointed in that RAND is going to say, here are some models. And yes, you may need to have work in evangelism or discipleship or worship, but you're going to have to do it in the context of your church with your people and your resources. And I think that's really important for us to remember, that each one of these is unique. And I think part of the genius of RAND is that it really does help us to keep each church unique and individual. You're going to be using your resources to accomplish it. There are 4 basic stages that most pastors fit into. This one's, I hope none of us in this group are in this one, but if you are, just don't raise your hand and we won't know the difference. Unconscious incompetence. You don't know what you don't know. And well, there might be a little bit of that going on, but I'm not going to admit to it. And second is conscious incompetence, that you know that you don't know. And that might even be worse than the first one, knowing that you don't know it, but it's really a problem when you can't figure out how to get there. And then the third is unconscious competence. You don't know that you know. And then fourth is conscious competence. You know that you know. The goal of RAND is to take these 4 basic stages that most pastors fit into, and a pastor can come in any one of those stages and grow through peer-to-peer learning. And peer-to-peer learning is really an underpinning of this entire RAND project. As facilitators, if you all choose to be facilitators, you are going to be learning with the others in your cohort. And so you'll be sharing some of the teaching time with others in your cohort. But this is a learning together and sharing together. So that really helps to build relationships and camaraderie. Through support, inspiration, and accountability and teaching around the 10 essentials, the RAND project helps any pastor to go up a level in their competence, even if they started all the way at the unconsciously incompetent. You will be better if you can make it through RAND. I already told you RAND stands for research and development, and the 10 essentials become the foundation for the project for Vibrant Church Renewal. RAND, in building this project, there were a series of 9 videos based on 9 of these essentials. The spiritual principles is a characteristic that's integrated into every one of the meetings by the Wesley type structure of the cohort group, by sharing a question together that you'll answer each week, by spending some time praying together, encouragement. So we have 9 videos, and then the other one is woven throughout the spiritual principle. Of the pilot cohort, there were 2 facilitators. They were Stan Reeder and Eddie Estep, and 5 pastors from Oregon and South Carolina. And we met from December of 16 until May of 2017. And the cohort serves as, like I mentioned, a modern day Wesley class meeting for equipping pastors and churches in this lay pastoral partnership. And you will have not only your pastors that you meet with, but you will also develop a cohort in your local church, and you'll meet with them on a regular basis as well. This I-class was all conducted online with the 9 videos and assigned reading serving as the curriculum. You'll watch the videos the day of your meeting, You'll do your reading prior to the meeting, and not every one of the video sessions has written material with it. I think it's six of them do. The cohort meets every month, and every other month you'll work through a video. And then on the off month, then you'll come back and just report on how you're doing, how your local cohort's going, whatever the spiritual dynamic question is you're working on, how you're working through that. And just a chance just to share together and make sure that you're all making progress together. Each of the 9 videos are divided into 4 segments. They're about 5 to 8 minutes each, and they lead the cohort into discussion. When we go to this next session after this, I'll show you what that looks like so you can see the, we'll go through a little video clip and you can see that at the end of each video, there's a question for you to ask. These are built so that it's not a lot of extra work for the facilitator. Once they understand how it runs, it should just it should walk right along with you so that anyone in your group actually could teach it for the peer-to-peer learning. At the end of the 4th segment, there's always a challenge to action and some reading if there's reading to be assigned. And then that's what you'll bring back to your meeting the next month. And that's what you'll be working on with your local church cohort as well. Concurrent with the cohort, each pastor worked with his own local church RAND leadership cohort. Later on, you're going to see they call it the LC RAND LC, and it just gets more confusing from there. But the local church RAND leadership cohort, it's a group of 5 to 15 leaders. It'll include some board members. If you have staff, it will include your staff. And then folks that you select from the congregation, they'll be learning the same curriculum. They'll be working with the same spiritual dynamic question. They're going to be experiencing the same accountability and executing the plan together. This is what really enables RAND to bring about that cultural shift, is this local group cohort. You've got to have that group. And even in the pilot project, the churches that didn't have a local church cohort didn't see any change. So I can just tell you that right now, that it may be a feel-good moment for you to be a part of a RAND group, but if you don't have a local cohort, you're not going to be doing the work of RAND, and you really won't experience the possibilities. All right, here are what some of our pastors in the pilot said about RAND. Everyone knows that vocational ministry has changed, but no one seems to know how to deal with it. The RAND project gives a new set of tools for a new paradigm of ministry for those of us who feel stuck. The RAND project is shifting the vision and intention of our church. My local church RAND leadership cohort is seeing the need for change, dreaming big dreams, and communicating our learning to the entire congregation. Well, I know that I sure found that true in our church, and it makes a significant difference in the life of the church. And what's so great is it's not all pastor driven, but we have lay involvement in it, and that shared responsibility is a grand thing. Here's another quote. The RAND project not only helped me to become a more missionally effective leader, but also provided practical, relevant resources that have enabled me to develop the leaders around me. Any questions up till now?
Can you share, or maybe you're going to do it, can you share sometime during the presentation your experience in your local church and why you're the go-to guy, why you're excited about it?
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, now or later.
Okay. If by time I'm done, if I haven't shared enough of it, then let me know. Okay. Here's how in the RAND project, every pastor and local church cohort will rate themselves, and it's really based on those 10 categories, those 9 categories, where they see themselves today. And then at the end of the 18 months, they'll rate themselves again. And so what you're seeing here, these pre and post RAND results are the ratings at the beginning and at the end. The first question, or one of the questions asked is, I understand I'm able to lead the church through complex change. Pre-RAND rated themselves 5 out of 10, and post-RAND rated themselves 7.8 out of 10. That's a 35% improvement over that 18 months period of time. Another statement was, I have a clear focus and strategy for evangelism that's resulting in people coming to know Jesus as their Savior. Pre-RAND rated themselves 5.5 out of 10 and post 7.7 out of 10. That was a 40% improvement. I'm effectively leading the church within a clear missional framework. Pre-RAND 5.8, and post-RAND 8.3. And I would say for me, I think what was so helpful for me is that if you have a cohort, a local church cohort, they start sharing this vision for a missional framework, and they just pick up the load. And that's what makes such a big difference, is all of a sudden you have other people who are just, they're seeing things and they're doing. And I remember one of the projects that they determined to do was a clothing giveaway right at the beginning of the school year. And I walked in to volunteer, and there were 6 people I didn't recognize who all had volunteer t-shirts on. And it never dawned on me that my cohort people knew people that I really didn't know, or that I would never think to ask. And, you know, people volunteer better when they're asked. And so my cohort was asking a whole new group of people that hadn't been involved in volunteering or helping in any way. So for me, that was worth the price of admission right there, just to increase that engagement of my congregation. Anyhow, this clear missional framework, that's a 43% improvement. There was improvement in all 10 of the essential characteristics for missional effectiveness, and even the lowest percentage of improvement was still 15%. And the average improvement in all 10 essentials was 32%. The pilot participants measured worship attendance pre and post RAND. Over half the pilot participants experienced an increase in average worship attendance over those 18 months. And, you know, we're talking, if statistics say we're going down 1% a year, it's great if we can see any of our churches then start to recognize new folks coming in. Having completed the pilot cohort, the lessons learned have been formulated into a 2-hour online facilitator training, which DSs and their designees are invited to receive, along with access to the video curriculum. And that's what we'll be doing in that next session. And I don't think it really takes 2 hours. I guess it's this one and the next one. So it's about 2 hours. So far, more than 2/3 of our districts have received training. That's now up to about 4/5. I probably need to change that slide. And when a DS or pastor on a district receives the facilitator training, they're given a password to the RAND website, which houses the video series and other resources. So Ira, have you received that? No? Okay, maybe Doug has it. We'll figure it out. We'll get it to you today.
I haven't received it, no.
Okay. Okay, well, we'll make sure then that you get them today. So that, and actually, because you'll want to give them to any facilitators that come out of this group for the training today too. All right, we're going to I'm going to save the website, because the next training is all about the website. So let's see, a slight increase in growth would make an exponential difference in where we are today as a church. Moving the needle just 3 points would drastically alter the future. The early church grew by 3.43% per year for the first 300 years, and that resulted in 33 million Christians by 350 AD. We've had the 18-month cohort has been completed, and that was 2 facilitators, 5 pastors, resulting in 4 or 5 RAND facilitators, assuming that 50%, there was a 50% selection, a success rate that completed the project. And now we are doing the ongoing training for RAND. When RAND first was established, the idea was to make it organic so that pastor would go through the training and with a local cohort, and then he would share that with 4 or 5 other pastors, and then they would share it with 4 or 5 other pastors. And we just discovered that is a beautiful picture, but probably not the most efficient way to get this done. As a matter of fact, it didn't work very well. And so we found the best way is to blitz a district with just an organized approach, having a group of facilitators come together and determine how are we going to best serve our entire district. And that's part of the reason that you all are here today. With the lessons learned from the pilot cohort and what we experienced with Vibrant Church Renewal, plus the DSs and designees being trained as facilitators, we've just determined that it's best to go to a district in one fell swoop. All right, I think that is that entire presentation. Does anyone have any questions?
They're so quiet.
I
I
can't,
like that because it was so thorough, but I know better than that.
Virgil, I might just, for clarification, we started down the RAND path with Stan Reeder. Then he resigned Orpac District and went into transition, and then we hit COVID. And so that's probably what happened on our timeline and process. So we regrouped with Ira leading it and getting us moving ahead. So Virgil, your mic was off.
Yeah, you're muted.
Still muted, Virgil.
There, how's that?
That's better.
Did you start any facilitator groups or?
No.
Okay, so
No. Stan explained to us that the best way was to do a blitz, and the timing of this, I was trying to find the right timing because, we would have a surge, then we would, all the stuff happening personally with COVID, but we felt like coming into the summer was the right time. And then I've been very pleased with the response. Part of it was too trying to figure out how we would organize our cohorts, the sizes. We listed all the size of churches just so we could, and so we have a good, this is a great turnout. So
yeah, it is.
I noticed when I called around, I noticed and talked to people, I noticed that a lot of people felt like me, a little out of touch. I felt a little isolated after RAND. I just come through a really big transition of 6 years where I'm at.
Mhm.
And when I heard Stan share this, I was like, wow, this would be a good tool for me. And I really started this in a very self-focused way. I wanted to do this. And I'm the one that came back because I go, can we do this? And then that's how I got involved. I think this will work really well with where I'm at in my church. Even though I don't know all the details, I just sense that it's a good strategy and a plan.
Right. Well, and hopefully you'll know a few more details after this second presentation. How many churches do you have on the district?
We have 63 active churches. Then we have the 3 new plants, and then we have 2 or 3 church type mission groups. So 63 would be the core part of it.
Right. So then you could do 7 or 8 groups pretty easily. Sounds like. And I know that's what we did on South Arkansas, was just blitzed it. And this is a smaller district. We tried for 5 groups. We ended up with 4. Not everyone wanted to participate as much as you try to get them to. And there were some even who dropped out. So you want a group that's large enough So when you do have dropouts, you still have a significant group, a small group that you can work. But I would say you could probably have 7 or 8 groups very easily on your district, and you've got the leadership here to do it too.
Mhm.
One of the questions that somebody asked me, I think it was Denise. Denise asked about the timing. You know, for a lot of pastors, I think it's, well, when would we start this? And they're trying to weigh all their options. What I told her, and I don't know if this is accurate, but I went ahead and I said, well, I think you would probably be working with your cohort to determine when you started.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't all have to start in September or July. It would depend on our group.
Yeah.
Is that
If you're going to
correct?
do it as a district, you know, you might just pick a district time when you think this would best work for you to start. What I found in Arkansas and what I found in Oregon is that it probably doesn't matter when you start it. The first 3 or 4 sessions are a lot of foundational, laying the groundwork, and you're meeting, you're growing, you're learning, but you're not going to be seeing a lot going on in the local church. So that makes it a thing that's easy enough to do even in a quiet season in the life of the church, especially if you want to gear up and have things able to go during the school year, or when you want to do evangelism events. But I don't know that there's a good time. I guess summer's probably not. The fact that it's 18 months is that you're going to run through all the seasons anyhow.
One of the questions that I had, I just, I'm a ready fire aim guy, so I have to be careful. But I'd already told my board that we were going to do this.
Uh-huh.
And I told them that they all were going to be a part. And then when we met with Stan, he goes, no, don't include your whole board.
No,
so I'm having to walk that back.
Please don't include your whole board.
Yeah, he said, don't do that. So and then I started experiencing that some of my board didn't want to do it. They already were like, I don't want to spend more time with you.
Yeah.
So I've had to walk it back, and so I got way out too far too quick, but that's helpful to me because I realized I was getting too large of a group.
Yeah.
So about how many board members would you include in a
we
cohort?
had our local church cohort was a little larger than most, partly because I included all my staff, all my pastoral staff, and I had 2 board members. And then there's 4 pastoral staff, so 6. We had about 11, I think, altogether.
Is there? I saw it said up to 15.
That was hard.
Is 15? I guess I've always lived by the rule of 11. Or if you get to 15 in a cohort, that's actually the max? But does it go down in effectiveness beyond?
I don't think so. I don't think you're going to have that large of a. The reason those numbers are in there is we're just trying to work within the parameters of what is a small group and a maximum size small group.
All right.
And you're not going to have, and that helps you facilitate a large church that has a large pastoral staff. And at first, when I was first building my cohort, I wasn't including my pastoral staff. And then I realized I'm taking the church on a trajectory, and we're planning events and activities, and we're developing a whole language, and they're being left out of the loop. And I need them to understand it and help be able to execute it. So before, we only got like 1 session into it, and we just sort of said, let's take a pause. And I invited the staff to come in because I needed them there. The hard part when you have staff at the meetings, I think, is that because they are the pastoral leaders, they're very quick to say, oh, I'll do that, or I'll take this. And you really want to try your best to make this lay-led and make sure that your laymen are taking large portions of ownership. They need to own this. They need to recognize that they're vital to its success.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah.
Other than praying for who you should have on the team, how would you suggest that we choose those that are going to be on the team? Do you have guidelines?
I chose. Yeah. I chose 2 board members, And those board members were board members that, I'm trying to, man, I want to say all this just the right way. There are board members that are more roadblocks, and there are board members that are bridge builders, and you want your bridge builders. And they're all good people, and you probably need someone to say, whoa, 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 let's talk about this. But if you're going to be doing new and creative things, you're going to need folks that can buy into new and creative. The reason that you include a couple board members is it gives the RAND cohort credibility with the local church and the local church board, so that the board doesn't have a sense you're doing an in-run around them. So that's why you want to include at least a couple of board members, but they need to be on board with this whole RAND project. And then I tried to pick people who weren't already over involved, people who were maybe a little bit more of the creatives, those people, you know, who like to think outside the box and are willing to say, hey, let's try this. And I don't know that it's the size of your cohort so much as the quality of your cohort. But those are the people that I looked for. I picked a couple business owners, you know, who had their own businesses, because they obviously tend to be more creative. I picked a couple of artsy people in the church that were always willing to do something that was expressive, but had never been in charge of anything. I tried to balance it with some men and women. And so that's what I used to build my cohort.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Denise.
What do you do with the cohort after the 18 months? What happens afterwards?
All this is going to be in the next slide presentation, but we can just go through those slides a little quicker. The 18 months is really the learning time and practice. You'll be coming up with different ideas. Hey, let's try this or let's do that. My cohort continued to meet on a regular basis. We recognized that in our church, discipleship and evangelism were woefully lacking, or at least a strategic plan for discipleship and evangelism. And so they became sort of the de facto discipleship evangelism committee. And we just continued on. We had the resources, and we just continued on after the 18 weeks, living out the plan that we laid out for the church. And we still had 2 board members on, so the board was getting a report every month what we were doing. It was great. It was probably the hardest part about leaving and becoming a DS was that, oh, we've got this thing up and running and it's good, and I love this team. It was my favorite meeting to go to, and it's hard to get a favorite meeting, and but I enjoyed it. And they did come up with great ideas. And what I like best is they were willing to execute their plans. And you want those kind of people. I had some people in my church, you know, I have a good idea for you. And we don't want those people on there. Any other questions?
We might even have a few Paco the Burro type board members who want to avoid in Arizona.
That's too funny. Yeah. Paco seemed pretty cooperative.
Paco is in charge.
Is that right?
Have you ever tried to move a burro? My friend that I was with told me I had to get meaner, and I had to hit him hard enough that it had to hurt worse. He had to be afraid of me. And so I got pretty aggressive with Paco. You can't hurt him. But I noticed that he would only move when I got behind him. So I tried pushing, pulling, which is very like pastoring. But he finally would run when we got into Main Street, because the lady who had helped raise him started talking to him, and then he would run. So it's all about relationship. There's a parable.
You know, I almost wish I had done the race now, because that'll preach.
Yeah.
Any other questions? If not, we'll go ahead and start the next slide. Now, I am pretty sure that this slide presentation, let's see here if I can find it. It's a PowerPoint. That's the one. Oh, this is it. We start this slide presentation and then we'll almost immediately go into the slideshow from the beginning. There we go. You all see that?
Yes.
Okay, good. I think we're going to go like maybe 2 slides into it, and then, so what we're going to do, most of this is going to be talking about the RAND resources, which means that most of our time is going to be spent on the website. And this is the website address, rand.nazarene.org. And if you end up going to that, you'll see that you need a password, and we'll make sure that Ira and Doug get those. And anyhow, so we're just going to spend some, so all of that to say, we're going to now go to the website. All right. And this is, if you go through the password, and this is the facilitator website. The participants in the cohort, theirs looks a little different. They don't have the video series on their website. And the reason for that is that that we want them to, we want you to watch the videos together for the first time.
Are we supposed to be seeing something?
You can't see this?
Okay, yeah, I just want to make sure.
If you can't, no, I mean, you can't see this is what you're
No,
telling me?
no.
But I'm not doing a very good job getting this to you here. Let's see. Let me try one more time.
You know, and I have been to that website that it gives the invitations, but I don't think I ever saw the videos or anything.
Okay, then you might have been there. Do you see it now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Then you might have been on the participant rather than on the facilitator.
Oh, that's probably it. Yeah.
Okay. And it starts off, there's a letter, tells you a little bit about why RAND, what the RAND is all about. A lot of this is the exact same material that was shared in the first presentation. You can see about different churches growing, plateauing, the American church losing 1%, 3% in 2019. I'll be curious what happens when we ever start doing statistics again, and where that's going to take us. A list of the 10 principles that we're going to be going through, how it all began. It really is just a recap of the RAND project. This is a great thing that you can use to share with the cohort members. This tells them a little bit more about it. We're just going to walk down this list of course resources. There is a let's see here. Make sure my internet's on. There are the 10 questions that you'll be asking. And what we've done with the questions is that every time, when we first started the pilot group, we tried to go through all 10 questions every session. And so what we found is, like, the second time, we weren't even having time for the videos, because if you get 6 or 8 pastors answering these questions, at least one of them feels like they have to make a devotional out of it, and it can just go on. So Stan and Eddie, after that, decided, let's just pick one question and we'll set a designated amount of time that we're going to spend discussing this question. So the first one is, I'm honoring God in my financial, and you'll recognize these are very much a part of the Wesley small group type questions. Even the last question is, am I dodging or deceiving the cohort regarding any of these questions? So you just say, okay, let's talk about tithing and saving. And then the next month when you get together, that's one of your first items to discuss is, how are you guys doing in your financial stewardship? And when we talked about it, we talked about our savings accounts and about retirement account, and all those things that go along with financial stewardship. nurturing my soul through prayer and Bible study. Each one of these questions, we just gave it a session rather than try to do all 10 questions. It's really up to you how you all want to do it, but it's pretty cumbersome if you try to do all 10. Any questions about the questions? With your pastors that you select, you're going to ask them to sign a covenant agreement for the 18 months. A covenant to be transparent and accountable around the 10 questions. Covenant to pray regularly for one another in the cohort. To create a safe atmosphere in the cohort built on trust and confidentiality. A covenant to commit to our own research and development through purchasing and reading or viewing at least one assigned resource per topic throughout the length of the cohort. And it was about $200 per person in the cohort. Our church just absorbed that cost whenever we needed to buy a book, because I didn't want that to be a reason people couldn't be a part of the cohort. It never seemed to be a problem for our church. Covenant to accurately measure worship attendance and pray and strive for the Lord of the harvest increase. What is so great when you start working with your cohort and they start talking to people in your church, it really does. There is an undercurrent change that takes place in lay people, because they know that your church has a purpose and a real direction, that you're trying to accomplish something, and you're being very systematic about it. And they have eyes for the harvest then as well. And they're excited when they see a new person there. And they all start learning the process, and that there's more going on than just, oh, we're all coming together, but there's some method to the madness of the church. Covenant to make this cohort a highest priority, not missing any of the 18 agreed upon I classes. I really hated to sign for that one, but we really held to that. There was one time we were on vacation, Judy and I were on vacation, we were down in Dallas, and I just found a Starbucks with the internet and spent about an hour and a half with the cohort, and she went around looking at different sites in Dallas. So this is something that you'll want to pick a time, but then you all need to just covenant to that time that you're going to do it. You're just going to do it. Covenant to secure a motion from your church board that you may participate in the RAND project. The motion should include not only your participation, but also empowerment to select your own cohort. That's really important, of 5 leaders or so from your local church, which will meet under your facilitation as you mirror the same procedure, timing, and content of training that you've received. This local cohort, I know I've already told you it's super important. One of the reasons it's so important is that you're going to hear all this material and learn it with your pastoral cohort. And then you're going to turn around, and we really encourage your session with your local church to be about within that week after you've met. Then you're going to teach the same material that you just saw, and you're going to see it again. And so it really helps it to get deep into your learning as the leader. It's important that your church board's giving permission to be a part, so that you can participate, so they know you're not doing that end around them, and they recognize that this is really a part of, they're a part of it as well. And then covenant that if the Lord blesses your ministry to grow, you'll recruit and facilitate your own I-class cohort of pastors. Like I said, we've really changed some of that. They haven't taken that out of the covenant yet, that you're going to freely pass on that which you've received using the same procedures, timing, and content. We ask that if a person is not in the cohort, that the videos are not shared with them. Part of it is that the denomination went to great expense to prepare the videos. And the second is that they're not really devotionals. They really are learning tools. And when they're just taken out of context or a piece, they really don't accomplish the purpose for which they were intended. And so that's part of the reason that we want to make sure that people have covenanted to join the group and are going to be in it. You have them sign, you as the facilitator would sign, and that helps make that agreement. Does anyone have any questions about that?
When you start trying to recruit your own cohort of pastors, What was your experience when because you're asking for a pretty big commitment?
You are asking for a commitment. I shared, and my only experience with that is from this position here. I talked, but it's like you, Ira, when you called the different folks to be a part of this group. I think there's a general sense in most of our churches of something missing, or man, I'm looking for a tool that's going to help us to move to the next step. So after I told the pastors what we were going to be doing, in the fall, I think we started in August or September, I think it was. I got my facilitators together and we took all the list of pastors and we divided up our groups right there together as one.
Okay.
And then it was my job as a facilitator to call my 8 pastors. And we did it in such a way so that we could say to those pastors, I picked you to be in my group because we wanted pastors to know that someone wanted them in the group. You just weren't assigned to this group, but you were handpicked for that group. And I think the hardest part, and I don't know how, and maybe you guys will be better at this, is finding groups that have enough in common that there's not intimidation, and there's also a sense of camaraderie. Sometimes when you have a really large church and a really small church, one church is talking in terms of staff and money and all those types, and a small church maybe saying, man, I'm lucky if I can come up with 5 people who can meet together as a group. And so you might, when you go to breaking up your groups, you just need to talk about what you want those groups to look like. Does that answer your question? Anyone else? All right, and we already talked about, this is that local cohort and you can use this too to share with the people you're recruiting so they can get a really good idea of what it's about. Also, that first page is, you can download this as a PDF so that you can send it. And you'll see this green box at the top of most of the pages on the website so that they can be sent to your local cohort and used in your local cohort. This is the assessment survey, the pre-assessment survey. What I discovered in South Arkansas is that, and Stan affirmed this just across the board, guys are much better at doing the pre-assessment than the post-assessment. And so as facilitators, we just ask that you remind your guys or have them take the time to do that post-assessment so that we can see, are we on the right track? Are we gaining ground with this thing? So this is the post-assessment. And I think, there's the pre-assessment, there's the post-assessment. All right. Should we look at some videos? You ready to look at a video? Your videos will be under the series. And I'm telling you all this, and then I think when we go through the slides, it's going to repeat it again. So it'll be a great reminder for us. And you can see here are all the topics, self-leadership, and self-leadership is going to talk about health and diet. It's going to talk about appreciation of other people. We can see what are the different. Here they are. What's this one? This is all about spiritual well-being. And let's take this one. This is all about financial health for the individual. So we haven't even started talking about the health of the church yet. This is all on self-leadership and self-care. We start with that. You can see if you were doing the first set of lessons, you can see here where click to send an email with a link to the series or copy and paste the address. You can send all of those to the pastors the day before or the morning of their session, of your group session. When you're doing your local cohort, they're all watching them together. Well, if they're all together, I guess in the days of Zoom, they may not all be together. We just watched ours all together. So you can see there's the video. This gives you a little synopsis of what the video is about and who the speaker is. And then at the very end of every video, we'll look at another one. You can see begin analyzing your financial resources, how you can make adjustments. Visit the website for Crown Ministry to help with retirement savings, or Dave Ramsey for debt reduction. But so each one of those is going to be here at the end of this one. It's read a chapter of Acts each day and write about that. So each video is going to give you something that you can do for your with your group. The let's see here. Conflict resolution's another one. Complex change, the one we already talked about. Let's pick another one here. Anybody see a favorite? How about assessment of present reality? This is Dale Schaefer, who's now the DS down in Florida. He was at our Medford church, and I think he does all, I don't know if he does all 4 of these or not. I think he does. Let's see. Yeah, they will do all 4 of them. You can see again, there's the green box at the top so that you can share it with the other people in your pastoral cohort. You can send that to them so they can watch the video on their own screen while you're, and with Zoom, you might be able to do it all together. You know, I did this pre-Zoom, so you might just be able to watch the videos all together. Again, here's the question that's at the bottom. What are the benefits of conducting? He does an analysis. How could this be beneficial for the church? And if we go back, let me just go back to the,
Now, when Stan presented this, I understood that our pastor cohort would probably be by Zoom, because
Okay.
we might be
Yeah,
spread out all over the state.
Oh, absolutely.
But-
the pastor cohort will be by Zoom.
And then I guess my question is, I don't know about everybody here, but we're able to meet, we're meeting in smaller groups now. Are all of you able to meet? I mean, if you could look forward to the fall and predict the future, you think
For
you'll be able
local-
to
for
meet
your
your
local-
cohort in person? Everybody's shaking their head. The people I can see. Okay.
Okay, yeah.
But the pastoral cohort, I think one of the things Stan said that encouraged me was that I'm not traveling somewhere for a meeting with other pastors.
Yes.
I can actually do that as my preparation for my cohort. It's preparing me, it's all synced because I'm preparing while I'm meeting with my pastors, then I'm preparing for my cohort. So
That's exactly right.
It's all
And
together.
You don't have to do any of this ahead of time. You're going to watch the video with your pastoral cohort for the first time. You've got your question here. He's going to talk about assessment of present realities. And then the question is, determine which of these 3 best matches your church. Do you need to lead differently? If so, how? So then you're able to discuss it with your cohort right there on the spot. And then you say, all right, well, let's watch video 2. And then you'll go to video 2 and the same thing. So the 9 video sessions all have 3 or 4 videos, and they're the exact same format where you'll watch the video and discuss it.
And the way I remember thinking about it is that's great, because I would need to prepare for the cohort meeting in my local church. And my preparation would actually be this time with these pastors.
Yes.
So it wasn't like I was adding an extra couple of hours.
Absolutely not. That's right. Yep. No, it really is just your time on the ground. Any other questions or any thoughts about the videos?
Now, are there books that go with the videos? Or is there a reading list too?
Yes, there's a reading list, and man, we should have already come across that. There is a reading list, and I just bought the books as I went along.
So is it a book per?
Not all of them. I think there's 6 different times you have books.
6 books, okay.
I think so. It might only be 5 books. And it's Reggie McNeil's Missional Renaissance is one of the books. Lynn Cione's The Advantage is one of the books. I don't know if you've had Crucial Conversations at on your district yet.
No, but I have that book. I have the book Crucial Conversations. That's one of them.
That's one of the books.
That's a really good book.
Yeah. Well, on Crucial you were with the RAND project, you're really talking about changing for some churches from fundamental direction, or even just the way you do things or activities that you participate in. And that Crucial Conversations is so valuable to help you in discussing this stuff with folks and keeping them on board.
Yeah. And that, for me, that book was huge. It's back when we were doing Strength Finder, Scott. And, we were trying to improve our strength with communication, but it was a real eye opener to me. So that's exciting. Yeah,
Yes. And Stan does the sessions on Crucial Conversations.
Yeah.
And so everybody will have the book. It really is helpful, because Crucial Conversations has its own lingo. And so when you're doing it with your local church cohort, you have this whole group of people who they understand the lingo. And it really is it's a good thing. My people probably enjoyed Reggie McNeil's book as much as anything. And that book helped us to determine getting out of our shell as a church, determine we needed to embrace our community. And what was so great is not only did they determine it, but then they wanted to do it and they came up with ideas. And it wasn't even so much that whether it was a good idea or a bad idea, but it was their idea. And they were willing to execute it and help staff it with volunteers. And so it just became a real place where we could practice. And I think we gave ourselves permission to practice all these different ideas. And as we do a lesson on, some of the lessons are more theoretical. And so then we'd have part of our process as a local church cohort was, how do we take this theory and now make it practical and determine how we could live it out? And what are we hoping for the results, or what are we going to really target in doing this project? It was good. It's a good way for a church to grow together, I think. Well, we better get back to the slide presentation here. Let's see, we're right there. RAND resources. We did the covenant. We did our 10 questions. We did a session schedule. We looked at the different sessions and we talked about the videos. You understand that the videos are, you view 1 month and then you come back together and you report on how you've done with whatever those videos are asking you to accomplish. So one is viewing and discussion. The other month is then reporting back on what you watched. Then the next month you'll watch another video.
And what I remember Stan saying was that first month is probably the more intensive, longer. And then the second month is a little lighter, but more, like you said, reporting.
I would say, Ira, I would even say it's probably 2 hours, 1 hour.
Yeah, that's what I remember.
It takes about 2 to
2
get
hours, 1 month, one the next.
You're doing the videos and you're doing discussion. You did your question, or you assigned a question, and it just takes that amount of time. Then the second one, you're reporting, yes, I did meet with my local church cohort, and we made our savings goal. We saved 10% this month, or whatever it happens to be the topic. And you spend some time praying together, and it's good. The second hour is much more relational. Maybe that's what it is.
I think Katie had a question.
Yeah, Katie.
I think I remembered it. I was gonna ask, it seems like the videos kind of build as the relationship with the cohort builds. Because my temptation is to go through all the videos at once and read all the videos at once, so I'm prepared for whatever is coming up.
Right.
Can you do that? I mean, if you had the time of day.
No. Yeah, no. It's really built to be peer-to-peer learning. And so you really are the facilitator rather than an instructor. And so you follow along with your group.
Are you saying I can't break the rules?
Well, I'm saying that I don't want to know that you're breaking the rule.
I would never do that.
Just put your whole board on the cohort. Stan told me, well, you could do that, but you'll fail.
Yeah, really. I
I
think,
said, okay.
yeah, I would say no, don't do that. All right. Any other questions with the videos? Or with the sessions, with your 2 hour, 1 hour session? Oh, here it even says it. Check-in is 1 hour.
Question.
Scott speaks.
Go.
Yes, so the structure with the cohort, with the pastors, is it, when you said 2 hours, 1 hour, is that what, 1 month will be 2 hours, the next month it's 1 hour, then
Yes.
the next month it's 2 hours?
Yes,
And
sir.
then okay, and is that the same time strategy than with your local church?
Yes.
So it'll be, so in 1 month you'd be spending 4 hours,
Right.
and then another month you'll be spending 2 hours.
Yes.
Okay, and then basically the sessions are going to be pretty much the same as you're doing with the cohort as you are doing with your local church.
Right.
Okay.
That's right. And I think it's hard for some of us as pastors to share as openly as we may need to make this effective with your local cohort. You're all learning together. And I think your lay people have a certain respect for that they know that you're not coming as the expert, but instead you guys are learning this and you're going to share it together. I think that's really key. And to be real honest with you, the pastoral cohort, it was okay. And it was good to learn all of that. But they were guys from South Carolina, and you didn't know each other as well. Your local church people, I really enjoyed those meetings. You know those folks, and you can put names and you can put locations and real ideas together. Things are always a little theoretical with your pastoral cohort because you're not executing anything. It's all more on the teaching. Does that make sense? When you're building, when you are recruiting, if you all determine that you're going to be facilitators, or if Doug and Ira determine you're all going to be facilitators, however you're going to do that, and however you decide to break up your district, you want to let participants know that they have been specifically selected because of their high potential for mission effectiveness. Sometimes that might be they're being selected because they have the potential, but you want to make sure every pastor knows that they've been selected and that this wasn't just, they weren't just forced into a group, or that they didn't have value to the leader. Describe the RAND projects as an opportunity for growth and learning. It's an experiment that we hope results in unified missional culture and vibrant church renewal.
It is true that we asked you to consider this. I mean, I went through all the list of pastors, and some of it's based on me knowing you or experiencing, I've known some of you forever, but I've watched you in meetings or I've heard you, and I picked people that I thought would be effective facilitators and also had some influence.
Oh,
then I went to Doug and we looked at that. So I just wanted you to know that we weren't faking you out, Dan, or Denise, or somebody actually asked me, "Oh, it's Dan. You have any question? Why are you picking me? Isn't that what you asked me?" You did too. Well, I've known and been around most of you quite a bit, and I have great. I think you'll do great as a facilitator.
Well, and I know on our district, they're even different. In our pastoral cohorts, those facilitators have different spheres of influence.
Yeah.
And you want to make sure you've covered all those bases. So I have no doubt that these folks are the qualified.
Doug or Ira, do you have any inkling of an idea of how we are going to divide up the district and the churches and who we're going to invite and stuff? Have you thought about that at all?
Some Ira has a spreadsheet he developed, and we started looking at that. And so the initial work on that has started. So
I don't have an answer. I started with a spreadsheet. I used statistics, which, because I was concerned about having the largest church on the district with the smallest church on the district, that while they could be together, that it would not work really well. So, I mean, I think we might look some at, I think Stan recommended we look at staffing, and we started trying to, most of our church, the big majority of our churches are smaller churches, and so we have a great need there. And then some of the problem we have is we're not going to get, we don't know who will be willing. So I think we'll have some, I also want to look at your influence. Like, I think you should have some input when you look at the list. Like, I would like to invite this person. Does that make sense? But then we're going to need you to take some people to recruit that you don't know. Does that make sense? So I think it would maybe be a hybrid thing. But I don't know what Doug's thinking. I think maybe it would be beneficial for us to actually meet in person and do a draft day or something, NFL draft or whatever. I think it might be good for us to come together, or we could do it on Zoom, but maybe we could come together and, I know that would take a day or an afternoon, but a meal, a box of lunches, and that's if all of you have been vaccinated. I've had COVID and I'm twice vaccinated, but anyway. So all I'm saying is I kind of would like to be together. Part of me says that would work better than us assigning you a list, because I would think we would need to review what we're doing and why we're doing it. And then go pray and then send you out to recruit. And then if it didn't work, that you couldn't get people, we might end up combining groups. Is that how that works, Virgil?
Yeah, but you won't. I mean, you'll have enough. And
Okay.
And really that's what we ended up doing. I got my facilitators together and we laid all the names out.
Yeah.
And we sort of as a draft. We just said, first,
there you go.
it's your turn, pick this one, you pick this one. And we end up, there's always those guys that for some reason or other are sort of hard to fit in, and we still end up having a home for them too.
Yeah.
And not everyone is going to say yes.
No. And then we can talk about strategies. Like, you guys know that I sent out an email and I felt like I was selling soap or something when I sent the email, but I think it was Tony. Tony, you're on there somewhere. I can't see you. But Tony said, she actually read it and she said, there was one thing you said. You said, in a rut. I said, I felt like I was in a rut. You remember that, Tony? No, you don't remember. But she said that's what resonated with her. I think I'm talking about you. So I think calling people, if you're going to find it hard to call people, some of the people never responded to me, and then I failed to call back everybody. So I think we would need cell phones from Doug. It does not do any good to call church offices.
no,
So
we have all the lead pastor, co-lead pastors, cell phone. We have all that. I do like the draft day idea. I think we need to be very careful with that part of it in matching people with like interests, like church sizes, as much as we can.
Yeah.
Oh.
I don't know, Doug. I was gonna, call Craig Coulter and ask.
Yeah, go for it, Kurt.
none of us are going to call Craig. Somebody should call Craig. Katie, it's yours.
I just talked to Craig. We're
Look at her looking away.
Our largest church, Oro Valley, pre-COVID, they were running about 2,200
Wow.
morning worship.
Yeah,
So it's a animal all itself. You
Sure.
know,
Well, and it may be one of those churches where we learn from. They're the ones that are figured out how to do it apart from RAND.
could be, but
I'd be surprised. Denise will also.
They
said she
need
wanted
RAND.
to agree with it.
I'm just telling you, they need RAND,
They
but maybe
do.
it's just done a little differently. You
Yeah.
know, maybe it's just their whole staff is the cohort, and I don't know. They need.
But we shouldn't exclude them. And it is challenging though. And then, but when I do the spreadsheet, I can show you the spreadsheet, but it's hard when you start doing the groups, like you look at the side, you have these probably 5 to 6, and then, you have paid staff. And does it really matter in terms of RAND if they have paid, volunteer? I mean, I have volunteer and paid, but you could almost look at all these have paid staff. Then you get in all of us have volunteer staff.
Mhm. I think
How does that work?
You want, for sure, if you have paid pastoral staff, you want them included.
Yeah.
If you have volunteer staff, it's the people who have responsibilities, whose lives and ministries are going to be affected by this. They need to be a part of it.
There you go. But it was hard. I got stuck when I first went through it. I thought I was supposed to come up with 5 church sizes.
No.
There are districts where they had just female pastors as a cohort. I didn't want to do that. I talked to Denise, and we don't want to do that.
No.
We want all of us. We need that. We don't want to continue those divisions.
And I think, our from my largest to my smallest, there might have been a little bit of disconnect, but by and large, most of us were in the same boat.
Yeah.
It really wasn't. It's your supersized church.
Yeah.
That 2,000 and that church of 40, they're going to have a hard time communicating with each other. But
some of those pastors, like when I was in Cleo Springs, population 500 in the town, 30 people in the church. One of my favorite memories were pastors retreat when Mel McCullough at Bethany First Church would make it a point to eat breakfast with Paula and I.
mm-hmm.
And he always was a nurturing pastor. So he was in the largest church in the district, but he understood, and it wasn't condescending. It was, I can't tell you what that meant to me. And so that's part of the attitude I want to have, is that
I'll tell you what, I'm trying to do some homework now to get us caught up on how RAND has gone with districts. And one of my DSs said that a pastor of a relatively small church, his first response was he was so pleased that he was being included and that he was being invited to be a part of this learning opportunity. Because I think the sense was, for him at least, that a lot of our smaller churches, it's always someone else who's doing it, and then they'll hear about it later. But you have a chance, they're being invited to be as just as vital a part as a large church is.
And I believe at the heart of this, the thing that I got most excited about as I continued to think about it, and even after talking to some of you, was that the rewiring, it rewires the district in our connectedness. And especially after COVID, and even my move from Phoenix to up here on this hilltop, I feel much more isolated. I know that sounds really funny, but I feel isolated in a different way. And I renewed, Scott and I spent a lot of time together through the years to Strength Finders, but we talked for a long time the other day, and I hadn't had an occasion to talk to Scott. I think as important as anything, it'll be the relational connections.
Mm-hmm. I think you're right. Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. Any other questions? And I want to go through this cohort facilitation. This is if you've led small groups, you already know most of this, but especially with an I-class format. And that's one of the things I've had to learn with Zoom and meeting with my pastors, is that there will be silence as you wait for people to respond. So if you ask a question, make sure you give space for someone to answer, or maybe you even want to let someone know, hey, Ira, this next question's for you. But just find ways and then provide the space. Most of us are preachers. We like to fill quiet spaces with noise. Sometimes it's good noise. Resist the temptation to do all the talking. Just good leadership, small group stuff. Draw participants out who are not contributing. So you can see as a facilitator, you do have some responsibilities that are beyond the responsibilities of just the other persons in the group. You want to make sure it's a good experience for everyone in the group. Participants should not enter the RAND project until they've signed the covenant and providing confirmation of church board approval and the establishment of the local church leadership cohort. We really emphasize that this is for the whole church and this is done with the church. This isn't around the church. It's not just some pastor's wild idea, but this is us as a whole. And so that covenant helps us to do that. The local, and just saying it again, that local church RAND cohort is essential to the project's effectiveness. I can just guarantee you that it will not go anywhere if you don't have a local church cohort.
Virgil,
Yes,
is
sir.
there a minimum number of people in the local church cohort?
You know, Dan, it's going to be the same as it would be for a small group. So, and I think that's why they've landed on that 5 to 15. So that's probably, you're not going to have the camaraderie, and you won't have that group dynamic with less than that. I mean, if you don't have any more, if you only have 3, do it with 3, but 5 is probably a minimum number. And if you don't have 2 board members, have 1 board member, But part of the idea of this project is to make ministry happen within the church. The whole church is participating. It's not just the pastor. And that local cohort, those lay folk, are going to make that difference for you.
I have a question about kind of locally licensed ministers that maybe they'll go on to be district licensed, maybe not. But it just seems like it would be such great training. Although one of them's not really active in ministry yet, outside of being on the worship team. It just seems like a great training ground, but I don't know how to weigh that against getting someone else who might be able to contribute.
Yeah,
something.
well, your group size, your group is 5 to 15. So it's easy enough to add extra people to it. I mean, if you think that person would benefit from it, have them be a part. They're still going to sign a covenant. I mean, they're still going to be a vital, active part of the group. They're not just observing it. Okay, any other thoughts, questions, good ideas?
Okay, I have one more.
Yes.
Do you think they need to be a member of the church? Any thought? And maybe Doug has a thought on that too.
Now you're asking for my opinion.
Ooh,
Well, what have you found then?
I think they need to be a vital part of the life of the church.
I would agree with that. I just don't, so many people are non-members, and Arizona, we have so many snowbirds. We have people in and out of here. So I think the commitment to the church is what we're looking for. Actively involved, committed.
That's a good way to say it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. This cohort fosters lay development, pastoral relationships with leaders, opportunity, unified missional culture. You will enjoy your local church cohort. It's just fun. It's good. They watch the same videos. They're going to use the same 10 questions. They're going to read the same material as the pastoral cohorts. I think maybe that's why I like RAND, is it takes this hierarchy that it's so part of who we are as Nazarenes and sort of flattens it out a bit. And I think I enjoy that.
Would you
So-
recommend that the 10 questions that you ask every month be presented to the people before you ask them to sign on the dotted line?
I think you can, sure. Let them know that that's going to be a part of it. It should be a challenge to them. Oh, you want to include, I already mentioned this, 2 members of your church board, 2 influence leaders from the church. And those are, we've talked about who some of those people may be. You're going to meet every same cycle as the pastoral cohort. It's best if you meet within a week of the pastoral cohort for video. And you know, once you pick, like, and what Stan was telling me is, and we didn't do this, but we were pre-COVID and all, but he said that they have, several churches have found, or several cohorts have found, that Sunday evening is a good time to do it for their for their local church cohort. I think you just want to find a time when it's convenient for folks to get together. The videos will be made available to the facilitators on the facilitator website. I showed you that already. And the video links should be sent to the participants by the leader. And tell you what, and this is something that is new that they're adding, and I really like it, is a technical facilitator. Pick someone out of once you get your cohort together, see if someone can be responsible for making sure the links are sent out, or just sort of running so you're not trying to make sure a video's running and you've got your sharing on Zoom. Just share some of that leadership. You can send those links to them. It's important not to make all 9 videos. Who asked me that earlier? Videos available for either the facilitator or the participants to watch all at once. And it is really tempting, and I will only confess it to you all. I won't tell any other group. My very first local church cohort, local church cohort, I watched all the videos another time because I just wanted to make sure that I had it all down when I met with my lay people, because I thought, oh, I've got to make sure I know this. And then after that, I realized that was sort of futile, and I just need to be learning it again with them. But please don't be spreading that around, okay? Video material's worth is maximized only when watched with the cohort in an environment that fosters discussion, application, and accountability. This is good. This is good stuff. The RAND project's designed with the length and portability of videos to be conducted for using online. I think Ira asked me about that earlier. And you can do that with your local. I enjoyed, my local met in person. I think they should if they can. And it just provides for better conversation and just time together. So someone even brought refreshments because, well, I like food. The online format eliminates travel time, additional expenses, also allows participation even when traveling, which is true. A technical co-facilitator is recommended, especially with the online class format. Even if you're meeting in person, I used my worship leader, my worship pastor, because he understood the tech. That way I didn't have to turn the video projector on or anything. He was able to do all that for me. For your local church cohort, it's really handy. All RAND, okay, and this talks more about the organic method again, and it sounds like you guys are thinking a little more toward organized, but all RAND participants have covenant to freely pass on that which they've received. And so as a part of that, and I would do this even if you're doing the organized method, is just shares responsibility. The last 8 months or the last 4 videos and 4 check-ins, assign different members of your cohort. Say next month you're going to be doing this. The next month you're going to be leading. You're going to do our follow-up session. Just shares the experience and builds leadership. Make sure before they lead the video or check-in session, let them know that you'll speak up to help them stay on schedule if they get behind. Prepare in advance to have a participant remain at the hangout for debriefing after they lead the session. If you end up going this route, and you can. Same with the local church. And I did not do this with the local church. We were all just sitting around a table. Maybe I had folks lead the conversation, but I didn't have them try to run the whole meeting. Local church cohort participants may want to keep meeting after the 18 months. I would just say they should keep meeting after the 18 months. All they've done at 18 months really is set up some framework. We've learned some skills. We've learned a common language. We have a vision in mind. This group can really spearhead in the congregation and where they're going to go with all that they've learned. They're a valuable group of folks for you. And this is a prayer for all of us, that the Lord just bless you and guide you as you lead pastors and churches on your district in this adventure with RAND. And I think, it's always good for us to remember that many lives be transformed by the saving power of Jesus, and that his grace will equip you and your pastors and ministry for this generation. That's really the reason we're doing this. Any other questions?
Not a question, a comment. Earlier, there was a dollar amount in there, approximately 200. If there's any church boards that need assistance with that, if you'll just let me know, or Ira know, we've got money that we can help if you don't have the ability to cover some of those collateral materials.
So that's per individual. $200 over the 18 months is probably the estimated cost of buying books.
Right.
Materials.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
So do you suggest that each person buy their own, or that the church supplement that? Or
you can. I think it's just going to be as unique as your church. If your church can't afford it, it's a nice thing to do. I think it's a nice way to affirm their commitment for these 18 months. If you can't afford it, then just let them know that's part of it, that there'll be some books along the way. Any other questions?
Is the pre-assessment and the post-assessment done just by the pastoral level, the pastoral cohort, or is it also at the local cohort level?
It's also with the local cohort. Denise, tell me where you saw Unified. I need to know so I can correct that.
It was like 2 or 3 slides ago. Sorry.
Okay. Oh, I'm glad you saw it.
She just thought that I did it, probably. I do this every Sunday just to see if people are awake.
Well, that was good. Thank you. I got to catch that.
Sorry. That's the way my brain works.
I appreciate that. My wife would tell me she says, never proof your own work. So,
well, I used to teach English, and that's what I always tell everybody. Have somebody else read it.
She found my mistake when I did my initial email. I put the wrong date on the subject, and that
was a big one.
I think it's COVID brain is what I.
Well, I just sent an email to all my pastors reminding them that it was the end of the church year and they needed to be getting their reports in. But instead, I just said it was the end of the church. I've taken quite a bit of abuse over that.
Well, yesterday was Cinco de Mayo. So when I first came to Arizona, I was in a church van with everybody from my church going to a conference. And I said, what day is Cinco de Mayo? And they all laughed. And I still, this is 20 years later, they post on Facebook, what day is Cinco de Mayo around? It was on there today. So I don't even know. It was yesterday.
That's good. That's good. Any other questions? All right.
Ira, what do you use?
So I think next step is we send the link to all of you and the password. So we'll get that password to all of you.
Yep.
And then after you've had time to think about it, we also need to let Curtis and I can't remember everybody else. We had 4 more people watch this recording. And so how about we give you how much time do you guys need to decide? A week, a month, right now? Okay.
Till after our reports are in.
Oh, there we go. I don't think we're in a hurry, but I will give you some time and see if you're ready for the next step. And then those who are willing to be facilitators, if it's okay, Doug, could we schedule a time?
Yes,
Like maybe, and we could use a big room like at Crossroads
sure.
and then we have a draft day. And what I'm thinking we would do that day is review his instructions to us on the corrected PowerPoint Unified, and we'll go down through there, and then we'll take some time to maybe eat something and pray together. I don't know, does the district have money for a meal?
For you, Ira, yeah, we got some money.
For me. So I'm thinking we would have something like that. And I know we have our district meetings for whatever it's called. It's not district assembly now. We have that meeting. So what are you thinking? June? Into May? Oh, we're only a month away from June. How about the 1st of June? We would maybe look for a date. Okay, we'll talk about it, but that's what I think is next steps. Does that sound good, Doug?
Yes.
Do you guys have any ideas about that? Link, password?
I gotta look. I think it's June 3rd. Is that the district assembly thing, the DAC?
Yeah, so after that.
Or I'm sorry, June 4th, Friday, June 4th.
So
Well, I was
maybe
just,
a little later.
yeah, so either later, unless you want to put them together for people who are
Oh,
traveling.
yeah, you do travel.
But
Okay.
just thought it might need to be later because people are trying to get prepared for that.
Yeah, I know that'll be the challenge, getting us all there for the draft, but we'll make it work. That's what I see as the next steps. And we could talk then about start times, but I really, I'm excited to be a part of this.
I think it's gonna be cool.
Very, very excited, and I needed this, and our church needs this. So the commitment scares me a little bit, just because I seem like, but I think it's a priority for me.
Hey,
Virgil?
David or Ira, I can give you those passwords right now if you'd like, or to either you
Oh,
or
okay. Sure.
and I'll mail them to you also. But if
All right.
so, if you're here's the facilitator password. All right, in your facilitator username is going to be Arizona F. No caps.
No caps.
Right, Arizona F, and your password is capital C 6 W 9 capital N H. That's for your facilitator. That's to get into the facilitator page. For those who are members of the cohort, but not the facilitator, their username is Arizona T. And their password is 3P, capital Q, capital K, capital F, N, lowercase n. And Ira, after we get off this call, I'm going to go on the website and make sure all of these work, and then I'll email them to you and Doug also. Okay, so then you can disperse them out. But
yeah,
okay,
I'll send them out. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
And then it would help me if I don't, when I send an email to all of you, if you just send me back I'll get them from Doug, but a personal cell phone. I promise I won't abuse it, but that way I can make sure I have a good follow-up with you. Thank you, Virgil.
Hey, you bet. Anything else I can do for you guys?
Thank you. Great job. Appreciate it very much.
Let me give you my phone number. It's 541-815-6656. My phone has started doing this weird thing where if it doesn't recognize the number, it automatically sends it to voicemail. So just leave me a voicemail and I'll know who it is to call them back. But I'd be glad to help. And Ira, once you guys do get it started, let me know so I can check in after a month or so and see how you're doing. And
Good.
if any of you ever have any questions, please feel free to call. All right.
Good. Thank you very much. Thanks,
You betcha.
everybody.
Hey, thank you guys. Okay, so Ira, I guess I'm going to shut this meeting off.
Yep. You're
Okay.
in charge.
Buddy.
Enjoy your
Thank
lunch, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.